The Blazers have also been eliminated from the playoffs this week, so it's time for us to talk a little bit about what we think their future holds and where this could go. Let's dive in and just kind of look at this little brief preview that I created for them as well. Number of different options here, number of different potential opportunities that I think you could look at. Having said that, this is going to be a shorter discussion than the Pistons one, just because it's a quieter, potential offseason for them. They're over the cap. They have trade options for sure, but probably not a free agency team. They have Scoot Henderson, who I don't know, Scoot, what has been your take on the Scoot experience? It just feels stop-starty because of the injuries, and he's a young guard in the NBA, and young guards are always hard. Darius Garland, De'Aaron Fox, you can go back all the way through history, and there are a number of them that have struggled pretty immensely in the same way Scoot has. I'm not as concerned about that moving forward for Scoot. I still think he has a pretty substantial and tremendous upside, and he's still the guy for me that I'm building around if I'm them.
Yeah, I do I have a little bit more concerns than I did going to the draft? Maybe, but again, he's dealt, it hasn't been super smooth for him. He watched the game recently. He got to his spot. He just didn't make them. I believe in the mid-range jumper. The first one looked smooth. The next couple he missed. He got to the rim some. He wasn't able to finish. He's going to have to figure that out in terms of NBA bodies and strength and athleticism and all of those type of things. A three-point attempt off the dribble looked good. The one off the catch, not so much. And so a lot of the things we were a little nervous about have come to fruition, but I don't have any concerns that we haven't just seen it be perfect so far in his rookie season. I think my biggest takeaway is I thought Scoot was a really good passer in the pre-draft film. This is actually the game I watched against the Bulls. I would have liked to see him break down the defense and create a little bit more. Now, there's some context with who he is on the floor with, but I think that would have been my bigger takeaway more than anything is hey, can you, how are you breaking down the defense and finding your teammates and creating for them? But yeah, I'm with you. It wasn't a stellar rookie season, but I'm not sounding the bell or, the sirens in worry.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well on this. And, trying to figure out the guys around Scoot is interesting.
Yes.
Because the way I've kind of laid it out here, I have Shaedon Sharpe and Jeremy Grant in their long-term core under contract. And I put Anthony Simons in the other assets under control. And that's not because I think Anthony Simons is a worse player than Jeremy Grant or a worse player than Shaedon right now. I think Simons is Portland's best player, if I'm being honest with you. But the timeline is becoming fuzzy with Simons to me. And right now, in the minutes we've seen, and Shaedon, missed a lot of time this year and everything, so it's hard to, really get a full picture of it, I think. There does seem to be a lot of overlap between Scoot, Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, right? And then you throw Brogdon into the mix, the whole backcourt felt very samey a lot of the time when things were happening for them. So given that this roster seems unlikely to change much going into next season, and we'll talk about the potential for trades here momentarily, but given that this seems unlikely to go down a road of complete overhaul in a lot of ways, you'd be entering a season next year with Anthony Simons where he's still extremely young, 24, 25 years old, but only has 2 years left on this extension that he signed. And if you get to the deadline, you're at a year and a half left on the extension. That's probably when the perfect time to move him is. And I actually wonder if they would get more by moving him this summer than anything. But if you move him, you need to be damn sure that Scoot or Sharpe can be your guy that can handle the offense. This is why I think that they probably just have to keep Simons this summer. But this is the summer where I think this becomes something of a question, at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I look at it, I kind of wonder because are you going to start those three guys together? If not, who do you ask to come off the bench? Can you talk? Do you want to work Sharp into it slowly to start the season? I
Well,
think,
and do you know enough about who should come off the bench yet, like
yeah,
talent wise for them? Like I don't know if we have that answer yet.
yeah, exactly. And so I'm with you. I think I would rather trade Simons this summer, go into the season with this young backcourt of Scoot and Sharp, and just know that that's probably what the future is. But the other side of it is I kind of, because we don't know how good that is going to be yet, especially this early in their career, I kind of want to keep Simons around for insurance reasons. Like, hey, we may need this guy to come in and give us all the things that he does. And so I feel like the happy medium, the compromise is keep them all on the roster throughout the offseason, trade them at the deadline, and do it that way. Or if it's like, oh my gosh, one of these guys isn't it, we get some more data and we're really worried about, I don't even want to say either their names because I don't think this is what's going to happen, but we don't think that they're going to develop the way we thought. Okay, let's reconfigure with Anfern or Simons at 24 years old. Maybe he's the one we need to keep on the roster and move on from one of the other ones.
Right. This is why I think at the end of the day, they're probably just going to have to keep him
I think so
this
too.
summer in terms of like seeing the way this works. But I bring this up to say we're rapidly approaching where like this does need to be a conversation. And if I was another team like Orlando that like needs another scorer, I would probably be calling Portland at least this summer and seeing like, hey, you've got some overlapping pieces here. We really like Anthony. He's only got 2 years left. He's the one where it might not fit quite the same timeline. Can we go about, having a conversation on this maybe?
Yeah, I mean, and that'd be interesting, right? In Orlando with the defenders they have around him to kind of make up for any limitations there and just say, hey, just go get buckets, man. Like, just go get
Yeah.
buckets and we'll take care of a lot of the defensive infrastructure. That would be interesting for Orlando.
The other like interesting player here is DeAndre Ayton
Yeah.
because like DeAndre started the season like just so incredibly disappointingly to me. I thought he was so frustrating to watch and was just so not there in terms of, screening effort and consistency, like defensively. Like I thought there were a lot of really frustrating moments with him. Adjusting to a new city, obviously, has never really left like the southwest of the United States before this. I get it. Over his last 20 games, DeAndre Ayton is averaging 21 points, 12 rebounds, shooting 63% from the field and never getting to the free throw line, but shooting 90% from the line. They have really figured out how to weaponize him as a roller again, which is what he should be. And he has been like a fantastic, fantastic offensive player, I think, and been, look, like I don't want to overstate it and say like he's been like some incredible defender, but like they aren't a catastrophe on defense. And like he's been pretty okay. I do want to just like call out. I think that you keep DeAndre Ayton and you keep rolling with this, given that he was a big part of the Dame return and given what he has now shown over these games that frankly don't really matter for Portland, but like there's at least been enough here now to where I want to keep him. And I wonder if, we get to next summer, he might be like an asset for somebody. At the very least, like could be like a useful rim runner and screen and roll big for these guards to continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd keep him on the roster for sure. I just don't think he would stop me from drafting one in the draft if somebody fell to me that made
Sure.
sense, right? Like you moved up in the lottery and Sar falls to 3 because, whoever Reese and Cody Williams go 1-2. I'm not taking Alex Sar if he's the top guy on my board because I have DeAndre Ayton or something like that, right? Or
Yeah.
even with their second first round pick, if somebody's there that makes like you fall in love with Yves Misi or something like that, right? Like just throwing names out there. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying if the Blazers have him as the number one guy on their board whenever their pick is up, I don't think that stops you from taking them. But because of what you've talked about, because he does rebound the ball, he does offer something in pick and roll. He can make some shots. He's never going to be as physical as people want. He's never going to be as authoritative as people want. I get it, but it's still valuable to these young guards, specifically Scoots. And so I think because of that, like you don't move him until you really, really know that you have the replacement.
Yeah, to me, it can't be a true big. It basically just can't be a true big that you're drafting because you have Rob Williams still on this roster.
That's true.
You have
Yep.
Dwap Reith on this roster, and Dwap Reith has been really valuable.
Very
and he's
interesting.
on a
Yeah.
really good minimum deal now moving forward for them, where they've got him for 2 more years beyond this one at like
Yep.
4 million total.
Yep.
And he's like a definite like useful backup center in my opinion.
I agree.
So
that's true. That's fair.
I think you probably can't go true big in the draft, but I think that you can probably look a few different scenarios, a few different places, and try and figure things out. The guy that I do wonder about this summer is Brogdon. Obviously could have gotten moved at the deadline this past year. The question for them is going to be now, do you try and extend him or do you try to move him? You have to do one this summer, I think. If you really like having him around for the younger guards, maybe you do give him an extra year and then just like kick the can down the road. But it can't be more than an extra year given Brogdon's, injury history. And it can't really be like for crazy money. It couldn't be for more than what he's on now, in my opinion. So if I'm them, I'm probably just trying to move him. And I think I could probably get like a late first rounder worth of value in some way, shape, or form. Be it, a distressed asset player or something like that. That's probably what I'm trying to do, though, if I'm Portland. I think this is the summer where you move Brogdon.
And I think a little bit of that depends on what you do with the Simon situation as well. I don't know that I would sign up for trading both of those guys this summer because then if you're going to trade Simons, I can see where Brogdon becomes a little more valuable being, I know Simons again is only 24, but a little more experience there. And so if you're going to trade Simons for sure this summer, I might consider keeping Brogdon, extending like what you're talking about. But yeah, I would be inclined to doing what we've talked about, keeping those 3 guys in the backcourt and then just going ahead and seeing what I can get for Brogdon. Cause like, I hate to say it, like it sounds bad, but like, when you can trade him this summer as opposed to halfway through the season when there's a chance that he's hurt and then you can't trade him, like I would rather just get that moved on whenever I can get some value for it.
I think that's right. And I think that's how I feel about it as well. Generally, it feels like this team just doesn't have a lot of maneuverability this summer. Like they can try and move Matisse Thybulle. They can try and move Rob Williams. I don't know what they'd get for those guys. The Rob Williams injury stuff seems quite scary given his contract. And then Matisse Thybulle, it just has been outplayed by Toumani Camara, frankly, this year. So Toumani feels like your defense first guy moving forward. I think they did a good job this offseason hitting on the super margins, like nailing the Dwap Reith getting Toumani Camara as a throw-in in the Damian Lillard deal, right? Like they nailed a lot of the marginal stuff. They just need to hope that the big stuff can come at some point. This draft's going to be hard to find like a true number 1 option, but this Golden State pick and their own pick, they're going to have a lot of potential maneuverability there. Like they could do some things where maybe if they want somebody and somebody wants to move down, it wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to move down in this class. Could you attach, if it ends up at number 5 and number 13 to get up to number 2 because you love somebody, right? Maybe something like that could be real.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you put there is exactly right. You have the backcourt. We've talked about it. You have some bigs, right? We talked about DeAndre Ayton. Dwap Reith is really interesting. So it's like you have some of these wings and forwards and, obviously Jeremy Grant, a completely different level, but, I'm interested in Toumani Camara. Can he figure it out offensively? Chris Murray, like those guys, but you need some high upside wings forwards, like some real potential starters. And then Camara and Murray and those guys can just come off the bench and be in the roles that they need to be in. And so I think the question becomes, do you trade up to 2 to draft Cody Williams or Risache, or do you stay where you're at and maybe one of those falls to you at 5, or you take Buzelis at 5 and then you get another bite at the apple with Dalton Connect, an older prospect, or Saloon or somebody like that, or if it falls even lower, then you're getting into the Keyshawn George, Johnny Furphy, some of those guys potentially if it hits a little bit later. Do you take 2 bites at it and see if you can hit on one or both, obviously?
Yeah, I think that you probably take 2 bites at it, just
I
given where
would as
they're at,
well.
right? Like given this draft, given what everything is, like I would think that they will, if they end up at, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that, in all likelihood, one of Zachary Sachet, Matas Bazelis, Alex Sarr, Cody Williams gets to them, I
I
would
agree.
think.
I would agree.
And I would kind of just let that happen
Yep.
and then, use 13 and take whoever I think the best player available is at 13, right? Like whoever I really like and go from there. It doesn't have to be a young guy. Like I like Kyle Filipowski for them. Like I think that would be a really interesting, bigger 4-5 hybrid. They've had success with Duaparith this year. Can't go like true big in my opinion. And you wouldn't want to take Sarr and like Filipowski, but you could take one of those two and then take like a bigger wing, which would mean you'd want to take the bigger wing at 3, 4, 5 if you could, and hope that one of the bigs is there, like Saloon, Filipowski, the skilled ones is just kind of there at 13. They have a lot of options though. I think Portland has a lot of options in the draft this year to be able to do some things. I don't think that they are close enough to where they should be making like big structural moves where they go and like trade number 13 and Shaden and Simons for like a Sarr. That doesn't make sense to me. I think they need to just keep building this gradually, and that's not exciting or thrilling or anything. And I'm sure Blazers fans won't love to hear that necessarily. But I think at the end of the day, you just kind of have to keep going and like probably accumulate a 2025 draft pick that's pretty high, right?
Yeah, and like I say, you can't make any of these ground breaking decisions or game changing decisions so you know what you have in the backcourt. Like it's too early to do those things, and so you know exactly what Scoot is, not exactly, but have a better idea and more data of what Scoot is, what his trajectory is, thing with Shaden, all of that. Once you have that information or some more data to make you feel comfortable about that, then you can start to look to make those moves. I think they're set up decent. Like I say, it's not going to be necessarily fun for Blazers fans or crazy exciting. I guess maybe there's some trades here, but you're set up with those 2 first-round picks to again take 2 swings on guys that could come in and fill positions that you need, find out what this young group is, and go from there.
Yep, I think that's right, Bryce. That's all I've got on the Blazers. Really, it's not going to be like a super thrilling summer for them.